Satin Credit Care. ICRA has downgraded the outlook on debentures to negative from stable. HP Singh, the founder and MD of the company, now joins in on the show to take us through their outlook. Hi, Mr. Singh. Good afternoon, sir, and thanks very much for joining in. This downgrade that I understand has come in on the back of the collection efficiency, which has dipped in the November to Feb period. Can you tell us what it is at now in Feb and how this compares to the previous quarter?
So I think, probably I'll clarify a few points based on how this outlook has probably been from stable to negative. So it's not a downgrade, it's basically an outlook which has changed from stable to negative. I think there are a couple of points which probably are clarificatory in nature, which have probably not been taken in its due endeavor by the rating agencies, and I don't probably blame them. Maybe they have their other issues. What we are looking at majorly in our representation to them is that the lag for November and December technically shows a lag of about 6% in November and about 7% lag in December, which means in normal parlance that 6% of our borrowers have not paid their November installment and 7% of the borrowers have not paid their December installments. And if you compare it with peers of ours, basically, I think the difference is just about 3 to 4 percentage points. So our sense is that I think, this is probably the best way of looking at how our collection efficiency are panning out to be. Not the 30-day par or the 60-day par, which probably will not give you a very clear-cut picture of how this is actually panning out to be. So this is where we stand right now. And I think, for us, probably this would have probably been one of the major reasons for, looking at how this has to be seen. The other fact, I think, which we probably have put it across to even the rating agencies is that we have a very large liquidity which is there, and which is probably about a 7-month liquidity we still have in our books over there. So we have a long liquidity. So in terms of any kind of a outlook, probably doesn't go into that distance. And just to add up a point onto it, so the debentures and probably the instruments which have been rated. The first one which actually goes in for a repayment is 2 years from now. So about 80 crores goes in for repayment about 2 years from now. About 100 crores goes in for repayment 3 years from now. And about 80 crores again goes in for a repayment another 5 years from now. So I think, in the near term future, this doesn't hold good. Definitely, yes, if you really look at from the collection efficiency points of view, par buckets will be a little insignificant, will be a little different. But my own sense is, I think, this is probably what we should look at, the November lags and the December lags.
Okay. Mr. Singh, we'll, get to more details about the picture right now. You gave us the numbers of 6 and 7% for November and December for your stress portfolio, but purely on account of the rating change and the rating being negative for NCDs as well as the subordinate debt program, does it in any way change your borrowing cost, if not for the current ones, but in the future, if you look to borrow, in the near future, if you look to borrow, would it change the borrowing cost?
I don't think so. They still reaffirm their rating. So I think, this negative outlook is technically a perception rating, which helps in terms of how they look at it. By them reaffirming the rating, I think that's a very positive sign. Based on also what we're bringing in as capital in terms of our in the next 1 month basically. So we have our EGM and bringing in more capital. So our sense is that the cost of funds which we now get from lenders and everything will not undergo any change, because the rating is still being reaffirmed. It's only the outlook, which based on the way I think ICRA looks at it and the way we look at it, I think we are probably on a different platform altogether. My own sense is just to keep it, like I said, they should probably have something which says it's not negative. They should look at it basically that achieving fairly stable. I think, somebody has to be creative enough to not to give a outlook like that, but say, okay, fine, this is coming to achieving, fairly being stable over here.
Okay. What about your the portion of your book from UP? I understand it's roughly about 1/3, right? What's the kind of impact you see now post-elections?
So, that's why I've clarified probably last week also. Our UP book is close to about 33%, and our collection efficiency in UP as of last week is close to about 92% plus. So that is where we've come off, from November onwards, where UP was probably at a 45% or 50% collection efficiency. I think, UP has moved a long distance. We've come up to this level. And in the next 1 month or maybe 2 months, I think, we'll fairly be back to the same normalcy levels what we had seen pre-demonetization. So we're fairly confident about that reaching over there.
Okay. Let me come to the point that you made earlier, that the lag for November and December is at 6% and 7% respectively in terms of the dues which have not yet come through to the company. What is the the figure in January, February, and in March so far in the first 20 days?
So January, I'll give you, it's about close to about 11%.
Okay.
So 6, 7, and 11. So January is that. I think February will still not be an indicator, basically because the lags will first happen for the November and December months before. But November, December, and January, if you look at it, January is close to about 11% or so.
Okay. All right. And what about the fact that, ICRA says there is a significant deterioration in your portfolio asset quality? How would you like to respond to that?
Well, as I told you, basically significant, I think, would have been in November. We're not talking about March, where our collection efficiency and our lags have improved to such a long distance. There's been a deterioration, but I think, we have fairly been stable now. So that's what I said, I think, probably they'll have to look at it from that point of view. Deterioration, yes, in November, December, definitely we would have talked about it. A negative outlook probably in November, December would have been fairly okay. But now I think, somebody has to be, creative enough to tell us that it's reaching fairly stable outlook right now. If it not reached stable outlook, it's reaching fairly stable, not the negative outlook. That's our way of how we think it.
What is the overall collection efficiency on your portfolio right now?
Our collection efficiency is close to about 90% now.
90%. Okay.